We're talking to Dr. LMadu2, and he's dealing with the implication of the Libyan crisis on Black Africa. And Dr. LMadu2, let's pick up, allow you to pick up where you left off the last time, pointing out the significance of the geographical situation that Libya finds itself in and how that has impacted upon Black Africa itself.
And of course, apart from the political issues, what has happened is that Gaddafi pumped billions of dollars into the African economy. The Organization of African Unity, which became AU, was actually formed in Libya, and as such, his hometown. You had the Such Declaration. That was the instrument that created the current African Union. Almost 3/4 of the budget of the Organization of the African Union is being paid by Colonel Gaddafi himself and his government. Now, apart from the mosques and the schools and all the other instruments he built in these countries, he also was funding their governments. The governments in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mauritania, he was funding all
funded by Libya.
Exactly, was funding those governments to balance their budget. Even Idi Amin, he was really funding Idi Amin. He was the reason why Idi Amin broke off relations with Israel when Idi Amin was in power. Gaddafi offered him more money than Israel was offering him, you see. So what happened now that Gaddafi has been overthrown? You have almost 1 million Africans out of work, just directly related to Libya, okay? In the past, in the past 1 month, since Tripoli fell, almost 200,000 people have returned to Niger only. Niger, one country. Almost 100,000 are run back to Burkina Faso and Mali. What are all these people going to do? If you look at the African extended system, the family system, one person working in Libya, earning, might be responsible for a family of 20, okay? So you imagine all those who are out of work, all those families, they are all out of work, out of food. So what do you have? You have almost 1 million people out of work, and when they're out of work, what do? They start looking for work, whatever work is. The fear right now, and even the State Department and other countries have expressed this thing, is the security implications. Millions of small arms, missing from the Gaddafi government. It's in the hands of all those people. A lot of the Al-Qaeda operatives, you have what you call the Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb, AIQM. They are getting those arms now. There will be a destabilizing influence on that part of Africa, in Niger, Mali, and all this. You already have some guerrilla insurgencies, in Niger even, okay? And you have the Tuaregs who've been fighting the governments in Mali and governments of Niger for a long time.
Now they're reinforced.
Exactly, they've been reinforced, and also they were the backbone of Gaddafi's army, those Tuaregs, So they've run back now across Niger, and what will happen? They arm themselves, either to come back and fight in Libya for what they believe they lost, or join Al-Qaeda. So that's the security implications. Moreover, the governments of Niger, Mali, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, don't have enough forces to police their borders, so they can move in and out. These are very serious consequences. In Nigeria, you have the Boko Haram group now that is bombing everywhere in the country. They're getting some of these guns that are coming to Niger and Burkina Faso. It's under destabilizing influence. Now, we've talked of the economic consequences already, about all this we're out of job. In fact, the government of Uganda was hesitant, to freeze Libyan assets in Uganda when, the United Nations was saying that because thousands of people will be out of work because of Libyan investments in Uganda. Hundreds of thousands of Africans have benefited from scholarships from the Gaddafi government over the years. So that's why, the implications for Black Africa is immense. Because when you put all these factors together, the economic and the security problems, you are looking at a powder keg, particularly in the Sahara. And mind you that when you talk of Mali, Niger, Libya, you're talking of a huge mass of land. Now, compared to Iraq, Libya, in terms of area of land, it's almost 4 times the size of Iraq.
Size of Iraq. And if you think we had some problems in Iraq in reference to that.
That's correct. Somebody can disappear in the desert for years in there and not even be found. Now you talk of Niger. Niger is almost 800,000 square kilometers, almost as large as Libya in area of land. So you have this huge mass where people can move in and out. So with so many guns everywhere and people out of work from this thing, you have a big problem. Now, what is some of the political issues there? Some of these, I've talked already about the Tuaregs who've been fighting for years. Now, with all of them out of work, they might, start fighting their governments again, which they've stopped for a long time now because Gaddafi, negotiated and funded them and built some schools, little things for them to make them happy. Now they might turn against their governments again. It becomes instability again all over the Sahel. These 3, 4, or 5 countries. Then it will spread all over Africa because when they start fighting, what happens? Refugees start streaming. They start fighting in Chad or Niger, those refugees will end up probably in Nigeria or in Ghana because they will keep moving. See, so it's a very, very, destabilizing thing. Politically, the African Union had refused to recognize a new, transitional government in Libya.
Okay.
But then a week ago or so, they said, okay, let's recognize them, but not really enthusiastically, because the African Union right now are upset. Not because, Gaddafi was much loved, okay? But because they felt that the overthrow of his government was illegitimate in their own eyes. Having been a continent formerly colonized, by Britain and France. Now for Britain and France to be coming back again, as a vanguard, of the Libyan transitional government, they see it as, a new colonialism all over again. That's their main gripe. Not because Gaddafi, his human rights and all this were ignored, no.
But because he's bringing the Europeans back into...
Exactly, that's correct, because they see Europeans coming back again to take the oil and all that in Libya that they were denied before since 1969. So that's the hesitance of the African Union in recognizing the new Libyan government, because most of those countries, we are victims of colonialism. And up till now, a lot of African governments are still not independent, really, like we said before. A lot of them are still being controlled by France and Britain and all these economies. Like the French-speaking African countries, almost 90% of them are dependent on France for their livelihood.
Okay, Dr. LMadu, let's stop at this point, and I think those are some excellent points that you're making. Let's stop here for our second commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up at that dealing with this particular issue. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Final segment of the show for today.